The evening had started like any other at the upscale restaurant tucked in the heart of the city. The lights were soft, casting a warm glow over the polished wooden tables, and soft music floated in the background. The smell of freshly baked bread and simmering sauces filled the air. She had worked there for months, learning to move quickly and quietly, to anticipate the needs of the diners without being asked, to notice the small details others might miss. Tonight, though, felt different. She was carrying a tray full of drinks when her eyes caught sight of a man entering the restaurant. He was dressed sharply, in a tailored suit that hinted at wealth but without being flashy. There was a calm confidence in the way he moved, a kind of presence that drew the attention of everyone around him without him having to say a word. He scanned the room, seemingly unaware of the whispers that followed him, the glances from other diners and staff. She had seen wealthy people before, celebrities even, but there was something about him that made her pause. He looked like someone used to being in control of everything around him, someone who had learned to notice the smallest details. He was not alone. A woman walked beside him, holding herself with an elegance that matched his. Her eyes were sharp, and she moved with a confidence that suggested she was used to getting what she wanted. But something about the way she occasionally glanced over her shoulder, the small, almost imperceptible twitch in her hand, made her uneasy. The waitress had learned over the months to trust her instincts, to pick up on the small things others overlooked, and her instincts were telling her that tonight was going to be different. As she approached their table to greet them, she noticed the subtle exchanges between the two. A flick of an eyebrow, a brief tightening of a smile, a hand brushing against a napkin that seemed more like a signal than an innocent gesture. Her curiosity grew, not in a nosy way, but in that quiet, observant way that came from years of being around people who didn't always say what they meant. She set down their drinks, careful to keep her movements calm and natural, and smiled politely. The man returned her smile, brief but warm, and the woman looked at her with a small, controlled smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She moved on to the next table, but her attention kept drifting back. Something about the way the woman was constantly checking her phone, the way she leaned slightly toward a man sitting a few tables away whenever she thought no one was looking, told her there was more happening here than a simple dinner. She tried to focus on her work, balancing trays and taking orders, but the feeling lingered, like a shadow at the edge of her awareness. Every now and then, she would catch a glance between the woman and the man across the room, a glance that was quick, almost imperceptible, but it set off alarms in her mind. The restaurant was busy, full of the usual dinner crowd. Couples whispered across candlelit tables, groups of friends laughed and shared plates, and the sound of silverware clinking against plates provided a constant, gentle rhythm. But amidst all of this, she felt the tension emanating from that one table. She moved closer under the guise of refilling water glasses, listening carefully as she did. She didn't need to hear the conversation to know something was off. People often gave themselves away in the way they moved, the slight hesitation before answering, the way their eyes darted to another person when they thought no one was paying attention. Her heart began to beat a little faster. She was trained to notice details, to read people in a way that most wouldn't even consider. And what she saw was telling her a story that no one else in the restaurant could see. There was a plan in motion, something secret, and she was in the perfect position to notice it. The woman was trying to communicate with someone without the man knowing, using small, coded gestures that only someone paying very close attention could catch. She felt a mix of fear and responsibility. Fear because she was just a waitress, but responsibility because she knew that if she didn't act, something bad could happen. She found herself moving through the restaurant with a new purpose. Each step was careful, deliberate, making sure she stayed unnoticed while keeping the two in her line of sight. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, but she also knew better than to ignore her instincts. Over the months, she had seen enough small things go unnoticed in the world, small moments that could have prevented bigger problems if someone had just paid attention. Tonight, she told herself, she wouldn't ignore it. The man across the room, the one the woman was trying to communicate with, looked like he was waiting for a signal. She noticed the way his fingers tapped on the table, the subtle movements that seemed almost rehearsed. She watched as the woman's hand brushed against her purse, pulling something small from inside, something that was then hidden quickly as if no one should see it. The exchange was silent, subtle, but clear to someone who was looking. She felt a chill run down her spine. She knew that if the man at their table didn't notice this, there could be serious consequences. As the evening continued, she bided her time, waiting for the right moment to intervene. She kept herself calm, serving other tables, smiling when needed, all while keeping her eyes discreetly on the couple. The restaurant staff moved around her, unaware of the silent drama unfolding at that one table. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that she had handled delicate situations before. This wasn't about gossip or curiosity. This was about noticing something important and making sure the right person knew in time. Finally, she saw the opportunity. The man excused himself to use the restroom, leaving the table momentarily unattended. Her hands shook slightly as she grabbed a pen and a piece of paper, her mind racing. She wrote quickly, carefully choosing her words, knowing that clarity was essential. Your girlfriend betrayed you. They're in position. The words felt heavy, but necessary. She folded the paper and waited, her heart pounding in her chest. She watched as he returned, and in that moment, she knew she had to act. She slipped the note onto his dessert plate, making it look like part of the service, and stepped back, pretending to adjust a nearby table setting. For a moment, nothing happened. She held her breath, watching his reaction carefully. The tension in the air was palpable, almost electric. He picked up the note, and she could see his eyes widen as he read it. The calm confidence that had defined him earlier was replaced by a flash of realization. He looked up at his girlfriend, who froze, her expression betraying the secret she had tried so hard to hide. The subtle exchanges she had noticed earlier now made sense, the signals and the hidden movements revealing their true intent. She moved away, continuing her work as if nothing had happened, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just played a small part in something much bigger. The rest of the evening went on, but the energy at that one table had shifted. She kept herself busy, refilling glasses, taking orders, but her mind kept returning to that brief moment when she had intervened. She didn't know what would happen next, but she felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that she had trusted her instincts and acted when it mattered. By the time the dinner service was over, the restaurant had emptied, leaving only the staff to clean up. She sat down for a brief moment, exhausted but alert. Her hands were still a little shaky from the adrenaline, and she replayed the events in her mind. She had always known that paying attention to the small things could make a difference, but tonight had proven it in a way that was undeniable. She didn't seek recognition, and she knew that her role was minor in the grand scheme of things, but she felt proud. In the quiet moments of that night, as the last tables were cleared and the lights dimmed, she understood that sometimes courage came in small, unseen actions, and those actions could change the course of events in ways no one expected. As the note rested on the dessert plate, the man picked it up with a steady hand, though his eyes betrayed a flash of shock. He glanced around, as if to make sure no one else had noticed. The restaurant continued to buzz with its usual energy, but for him, everything seemed to slow down. His mind raced as he read the words again, carefully trying to process their meaning. The words were simple, but their weight was heavy. Someone had warned him. Someone had seen what he hadn't. He looked at the woman sitting across from him, who now seemed tense and uneasy. Her carefully maintained composure was beginning to crack. Her eyes darted around, and for the first time, she hesitated before answering a question he asked. She had been confident, in control, but now, uncertainty lingered around her like a shadow. He didn't speak yet. Instead, he observed, watched the subtle movements, the way she held her hand over her purse a little too tightly, the way her foot tapped nervously under the table. It was clear to him now that she had been hiding something serious. The waitress, who had slipped the note, kept herself busy, pretending to arrange glasses on a nearby table, but she kept glancing back, making sure she could see what happened next. She had risked a lot to pass on that message, but she had done it out of instinct. Something about the energy at the table told her that the man needed to know before it was too late. She had seen enough to understand that secrets like these could hurt people in ways that were not always easy to repair. Her heart beat faster as she watched the scene unfold, knowing that her small act might prevent a disaster. The man finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. He asked a question that seemed casual, but it carried a weight that made the woman flinch. Her carefully crafted smile faltered, and she stumbled slightly in her answer. The more he observed, the more he pieced together. The signals, the secret movements, the hidden gestures, it all made sense now. She had been communicating with someone else, someone across the room, someone he hadn't noticed until that moment. His instincts, combined with the note, allowed him to see the truth. Across the room, the person she had been signaling noticed the change. There was a flicker of tension, a quick glance around, and a subtle shift in posture. The plan that had seemed perfectly executed moments before was now in danger of being exposed. The man at the table didn't act immediately. He needed to be sure, to confirm the details in his mind. But the awareness, the realization that he had been betrayed by someone he trusted, began to take hold. He felt a mix of anger and disappointment, but also a growing determination. He had the advantage now, the knowledge that he could intervene before any harm was done. The waitress continued to move through the restaurant, serving other tables, smiling politely, but always keeping her eyes discreetly on the couple. She noticed the subtle changes in body language, the small signs that indicated something bigger was at play. She felt a strange sense of connection to the scene, as if her actions had become part of a story that was unfolding in real time. Every small detail mattered. Every glance and gesture carried meaning. She understood that her role was minor, yet crucial, and it gave her a quiet sense of responsibility. The woman at the table realized that her secret was out. She tried to regain control, to act as if nothing had changed, but the tension in her posture betrayed her. The man's eyes were sharp, observing every small detail, reading every signal she sent. It was clear that he now understood the situation in a way he hadn't before. The balance of power had shifted. She had underestimated the awareness of both the man at the table and the waitress who had warned him. Now her careful plan was unraveling. The man's mind raced as he considered his next steps. He needed to act quickly but cautiously. Any sudden move could alert the woman or the person she had been signaling. He watched as she reached for her phone, pretending to check a message, but his eyes followed the subtle movements. He could tell that the phone was being used to communicate, to send signals that should have remained secret. The situation required precision, strategy, and patience. He felt a surge of resolve, knowing that he had the upper hand now, thanks to the small but decisive act of the waitress. As the dinner progressed, he continued to observe quietly. He didn't want to cause a scene in the middle of the restaurant, but he needed to gather enough information to confront the situation effectively. The woman's behavior became increasingly nervous, and the person across the room remained alert, sensing that something had changed. The tension between them was almost palpable. It was a silent game of observation, strategy, and timing, and he was determined to play it carefully. The waitress, aware of every subtle change, felt a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. She had acted out of instinct, and now she was witnessing the consequences of her decision unfold. Her heart raced as she moved between tables, serving drinks and clearing plates, all while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. She had learned over time that small actions could have significant effects, and this was one of those moments. She didn't seek recognition, but there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that she had made a difference, even in a small way. At one point, the woman made a subtle gesture, attempting to regain control of the situation. She leaned slightly forward, her hand brushing against the edge of the table, signaling to the person across the room. But the man at the table was no longer unaware. He noticed the gesture immediately and adjusted his own actions accordingly. The balance of power had shifted decisively. The woman's confidence was waning, replaced by uncertainty and anxiety. She realized that her carefully constructed plan was no longer hidden, and she began to question how far she could push before the truth came fully to light. The man finally took action, but he did so with discretion. He reached for his phone under the table, sending a quick message to someone he trusted, preparing for the next steps. His eyes never left the woman, and every movement was calculated to maintain control while avoiding a public confrontation. The subtle tension in the air was almost tangible, as if the entire restaurant had become a stage for a silent drama that only a few could perceive. The waitress continued her work, her heart still pounding, aware that the outcome of this situation could have significant consequences. She moved with grace and efficiency, balancing trays and attending to diners, but her mind remained focused on the table where the drama was unfolding. She understood that her role was minor yet essential. Her instincts had led her to act, and now she was witnessing the results of that decision. Every glance, every subtle gesture, and every movement mattered, and she observed them all carefully. As the evening wore on, the tension at the table began to reach a peak. The woman's attempts to regain control were increasingly desperate, while the man's calm observation and calculated actions maintained his advantage. The person across the room remained alert, sensing that the situation had shifted and that their plan was in jeopardy. The dynamics of trust, secrecy, and awareness played out in real time, and the outcome was still uncertain. The waitress, though physically exhausted from the long shift, felt a sense of quiet fulfillment. She had trusted her instincts, acted on them, and now watched as the situation unfolded with precision and tension. Her role had been small but meaningful, a reminder that even those who appear to be on the sidelines can have a significant impact when they act with awareness and courage. She moved through the restaurant with a careful balance of attention and discretion, continuing her work while observing the evolving drama. By the end of the night, the man had gained a clear understanding of the situation. The woman's attempts to manipulate and control had been exposed, and the subtle network of signals and hidden communication had been disrupted. The tension in the room eased slightly, though the consequences of the evening's events were still unfolding. The waitress had returned to her normal tasks, quietly proud of her actions, knowing that her intervention had played a crucial role in revealing the truth. The evening ended with a sense of quiet resolution, a testament to the power of observation, instinct, and timely action. The night grew quieter as the last diners slowly left the restaurant, leaving behind soft murmurs and the occasional clink of dishes being cleared. The man who had received the note sat at his table, his mind still racing with the revelations of the evening. He looked at the woman across from him, her carefully maintained composure now gone, replaced by a mixture of fear and uncertainty. He had pieced together the subtle clues, the gestures, and the hidden signals, and now he understood everything. What had seemed like an ordinary dinner had been a stage for a secret betrayal. He remained calm on the outside, but inside, a storm was brewing. He knew that he had to approach this situation carefully. Any rash move could alert the woman or the person she had been communicating with. He observed her every movement, noting the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers fidgeted, and the nervous glances she cast around the room. He could tell that she realized her secret was out, and now she was trying to figure out how to regain some control. He stayed quiet, allowing her to reveal more through her actions than she could through words. Meanwhile, the waitress moved silently around the dining area, clearing the last tables. Her eyes occasionally flicked back to the table where the drama had unfolded. She had done her part, but she remained aware, ready to notice any new developments. Her instincts were sharp, and she had learned to trust them over time. She understood that small actions could have a significant impact, and tonight had proven that once again. The adrenaline of the evening still lingered, making her heart beat a little faster, but she stayed composed, blending in with the routine of cleaning up. The man reached for his glass of water, but he barely noticed the drink. His mind was entirely focused on the woman and the consequences of her actions. He had known her for some time and had trusted her, but the evidence of betrayal was now undeniable. He had always been cautious, aware that appearances could be deceiving, and tonight had confirmed that lesson in a way that was stark and unforgettable. He took a deep breath and allowed himself a moment to reflect, knowing that he needed to handle the situation strategically. The woman, sensing his observation, tried to mask her fear. She smiled weakly, attempting to appear composed, but the effort was clear. Every small movement betrayed her anxiety. The man's eyes followed her closely, picking up on the micro-expressions, the subtle signs that indicated guilt and worry. He realized that she had underestimated him, that she had assumed her secret would remain hidden. The note from the waitress had changed everything, giving him the awareness he needed to respond effectively. He began to think about the next steps carefully. Confronting her directly in the restaurant could cause a scene, something he wanted to avoid. He needed to gather more information, confirm the full extent of the betrayal, and then decide how to proceed. His mind worked quickly, analyzing the sequence of events and the signals he had noticed earlier. He could now see the patterns clearly, understand the connections, and predict potential outcomes. The advantage was his, but he knew he had to remain cautious. The waitress continued her work quietly, her hands moving deftly as she cleared plates and wiped tables. She had become part of the unseen web of observation that had influenced the course of the evening. She felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that her timely intervention had made a difference. Her heart still raced, but she maintained her composure, understanding that her role was both delicate and essential. She did not seek recognition, but the knowledge that she had acted when it mattered gave her a deep sense of fulfillment. Across the table, the woman's attempts to regain composure were becoming more desperate. She tried to speak casually, to distract him with trivial conversation, but her words fell flat. He responded with calm, neutral replies, giving nothing away. His strategy was simple: observe, analyze, and control the situation without escalating it unnecessarily. He could see the panic in her eyes, the realization that her carefully planned deception had failed. The tension between them was tangible, almost suffocating, and yet no one else in the restaurant seemed aware of the silent battle unfolding at that table. The man's thoughts turned to the broader implications of the betrayal. This was not just about personal trust. There were connections and consequences that could extend beyond the dinner table. He needed to protect himself and any others who might be affected. The knowledge from the note had given him a window into the hidden actions that could have had serious repercussions. He felt a growing resolve to handle the situation with precision and discretion, ensuring that the truth was acknowledged without causing unnecessary harm. The waitress noticed the subtle shift in energy at the table. She could see that the man was now fully aware and that the woman was struggling to maintain control. Her instincts told her that the situation had reached a critical point, but she continued to move with calm efficiency. She had learned that being too obvious could sometimes escalate situations, so she remained a silent observer, ready to act if needed, but otherwise letting events unfold. Her training in noticing the smallest details had once again proven invaluable. The woman made a small, almost imperceptible gesture, reaching for her purse and adjusting the position of an item inside. The man's eyes caught it immediately, and he understood the meaning. Every detail mattered, and he had learned to read them with care. The advantage was now clearly in his hands, and he felt a surge of confidence tempered by the need for caution. He knew that patience would be his greatest ally in navigating the next steps. As the evening wore on, he continued to watch her closely. Each movement, each glance, each hesitation revealed more about the truth behind the betrayal. He pieced together the sequence of events in his mind, connecting the dots that had been obscured until that moment. The note from the waitress had been the catalyst, opening his eyes to the hidden dynamics at play. Now, armed with this knowledge, he was ready to take control of the situation without creating unnecessary conflict. The waitress, still attentive, observed the subtle interactions between the two. She felt a sense of quiet pride in her role, knowing that her actions had influenced the course of events. Her presence had been unnoticed, her intervention seamless, yet it had provided the critical awareness that changed everything. She moved with purpose, understanding that even small gestures could have profound effects when timed correctly. The man finally decided to act, but with careful discretion. He reached for his phone under the table, sending a brief message to someone he trusted. His eyes never left the woman, and his body language remained calm and composed. He was preparing for the next steps, ensuring that he would maintain control while also gathering additional information. The woman's anxiety was now evident, and he could see the realization dawning on her that her deception had failed. The woman attempted one last strategy, trying to regain her composure and redirect the conversation. She asked casual questions, tried to laugh lightly, and even made small gestures to appear relaxed. But the man was no longer deceived. His awareness, combined with the insight from the note, allowed him to see through her actions. Every attempt to manipulate the situation only confirmed his understanding of the betrayal. He remained patient, waiting for the right moment to address the situation fully. The restaurant staff moved quietly around them, clearing tables and attending to the remaining duties. No one seemed aware of the silent tension at that one table, and yet every action there carried weight. The waitress, observing everything, felt the culmination of her instincts and careful attention. She had acted with precision, and now she watched the unfolding events with a sense of responsibility and pride. Her role had been small but essential, a reminder that awareness and timely action could change outcomes. By the end of the evening, the man had a clear understanding of the situation. The woman's attempts to maintain control were futile, and the subtle network of hidden communication had been exposed. The tension between them remained, but the balance of power had shifted decisively. The waitress had returned to her duties, quietly observing the resolution and feeling a sense of fulfillment. The night had revealed the importance of vigilance, intuition, and decisive action, showing how small acts could have significant consequences. The story of the evening would remain unspoken, known only to those who had witnessed it, a testament to the impact of awareness and timely intervention. The night had grown quiet outside the restaurant, with only the soft hum of the city beyond the windows. Inside, the man sat with a focused calm that belied the storm of thoughts in his mind. He looked at the woman across from him, who now seemed smaller somehow, her confidence gone. The events of the evening had stripped away her carefully maintained mask, and he could see the worry and regret hidden behind her eyes. Every gesture, every hesitation, told him more than words ever could. He had been betrayed, and now he knew exactly how. He considered his next move carefully. There was no need for a public confrontation, no need for drama. He had gained the upper hand through observation and patience. He observed her hands, her posture, the subtle signals she might try to give. He knew she was aware that he now understood, and every small movement she made was a test to see how much he knew. His eyes never wavered from her, and yet his movements were calm, deliberate, controlled. He was deciding how to act with precision, making sure every step protected him and ensured the truth would not be hidden again. The waitress moved quietly around the dining area, clearing tables and returning silverware to the kitchen. Her heart still beat a little faster, even though the immediate danger had passed. She had acted quickly and instinctively, and her note had changed everything. She continued to watch from a safe distance, noticing how the man now scanned the room, making subtle signals to ensure no one was hiding anything. She felt a quiet sense of pride mixed with relief. Her small action had made a significant difference. She understood how important it was to trust instincts and act at the right time. The woman across from him shifted in her seat, attempting to regain some control. She spoke lightly, trying to make conversation, but her words were hollow. He responded evenly, carefully, giving nothing away. He let her reveal more through her actions than her words ever could. Her gestures, the way she glanced around, the small tensions in her movements, all told him the story he needed to know. She realized he could see everything now, and the realization weighed heavily on her. The balance of power had shifted completely. The man thought through every possible scenario. The betrayal was significant, and he needed to make sure the right steps were taken next. He had learned a lot from the note, from the small details he had observed throughout the evening. The signals, the secret gestures, the moments that could have gone unnoticed. All had been important. He felt a mixture of anger, disappointment, and determination. He would confront the situation, but he would do so in a way that was calculated and controlled. There would be no rash actions, only careful, deliberate moves. The waitress, still attentive, watched as he reached for his phone under the table. He sent a brief message, and she noticed the subtle changes in his posture as he prepared for the next steps. She continued her work around the restaurant, blending in with the normal flow of activity, but she remained aware, ready to notice anything that might change. Her instincts had been right, and now she could see the impact of her actions. The small note she had slipped onto the dessert plate had altered the course of the evening entirely. The woman across from him realized that her attempts to manipulate the situation were failing. She tried to regain composure, adjusting her posture and forcing a smile, but he saw through every effort. The calm that had once defined her behavior was gone, replaced by a tension that revealed her true feelings. He could sense her panic beneath the surface, and he understood that the facade she had maintained was now broken. Every action she took was a response to his awareness, and he used that knowledge to remain in control. As the restaurant emptied, the tension between them remained, though it shifted subtly. He was no longer just reacting. He was thinking ahead, planning how to address the betrayal effectively. He needed to ensure that the situation was handled in a way that prevented further deception or manipulation. Every glance, every micro-expression was important. He had the advantage now, and he was determined to use it wisely. He had learned to remain calm under pressure, to observe before acting, and to let the other person reveal themselves through their own actions. The waitress noticed a small movement from the woman, a gesture meant to signal someone else across the room. The man caught it instantly, and she could see the shift in his awareness. He had full knowledge now, and the woman's attempts to control the situation were futile. The quiet strength in his calm observation had given him the clarity needed to act strategically. She felt a sense of quiet satisfaction, knowing that her instinct had led to this moment, that her small action had empowered someone else to take control. The man continued to observe, noticing every hesitation, every glance, every subtle movement. He pieced together the full scope of the betrayal, understanding the hidden network of communication and the intentions behind it. He could anticipate what the woman might try next, and he prepared himself for each possible outcome. Patience and careful observation were his tools, and he wielded them with precision. He knew that rushing would ruin the advantage he now had. He let the tension build subtly, watching her struggle with the knowledge that she could no longer hide the truth. The woman tried one last attempt to regain composure, speaking casually, laughing lightly, and shifting her body to appear relaxed. But he remained calm, unaffected by the attempts to manipulate him. Every word she spoke, every gesture she made, only confirmed his understanding of the betrayal. He allowed her to speak, letting her reveal herself through her actions. The quiet control he maintained was powerful, and she realized that her plan had completely failed. The advantage was his now, and she had no more secrets left to conceal. The restaurant staff moved quietly, unaware of the tension that had gripped that one table. The waitress continued to serve, her movements smooth and deliberate, her eyes occasionally flicking back to observe the man and woman. She felt a sense of responsibility and pride, knowing that her actions had been part of the chain of events that had led to clarity and control. Her instincts had guided her correctly, and she had trusted them. That trust had made all the difference. As the evening drew to a close, the man finally reached a decision. He had gathered enough information to address the betrayal effectively. He planned his next steps carefully, considering the consequences and the best way to protect himself and any others involved. The woman's gestures and expressions had given him everything he needed to know. He remained calm and composed, ready to act decisively but with discretion. The quiet determination in his demeanor was unmistakable, and the woman could see that the balance of power had shifted irrevocably. The waitress, observing the final moments, felt a sense of fulfillment. Her role had been small yet crucial. She had trusted her instincts, acted when it mattered, and witnessed the outcome unfold with clarity. The night had reinforced the importance of awareness, observation, and timely intervention. Her actions had helped prevent a serious betrayal and had given the man the advantage he needed. She moved through the restaurant with quiet efficiency, finishing her work while reflecting on the impact of her instincts. By the end of the night, the situation was clear. The man had full awareness of the betrayal, the woman's attempts to manipulate had failed, and the subtle network of hidden communication had been exposed. The waitress had returned to her duties, proud of her role in the evening's events. The night had demonstrated the power of observation, the importance of trusting one's instincts, and the impact of small but timely actions. It was a story of awareness, courage, and decisive action, all unfolding quietly in a restaurant that had witnessed more than anyone else could see. The restaurant had grown almost empty by the time the final moments of the evening arrived. The clinking of dishes and soft murmur of the remaining staff were the only sounds. But at one table, the tension remained thick. The man sat quietly, his mind working through the details of the betrayal that had been revealed. The woman across from him had no words left to hide behind. Her earlier attempts to regain composure had failed, and she now sat still, aware that the truth had been exposed and that the balance of power had shifted completely. He studied her carefully, noting every subtle gesture, every flicker of emotion in her eyes. He had learned from the note, from his own observations, and from the small clues that had appeared throughout the evening. The awareness he had gained allowed him to respond with calm precision. He understood the situation fully now, and there was no need for confrontation or rash action. Every movement, every word had been carefully considered. He knew that patience would be his greatest ally. The waitress continued her duties, moving quietly between tables, clearing plates and stacking glasses. Her heart still beat a little faster, even though the immediate danger had passed. She had done what she could to alert him, and now she could see the consequences of her action unfold. Her instincts had guided her correctly, and she felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. Even though no one else in the restaurant knew the role she had played, she understood the impact of her timing and observation. The evening had proven once again that small, thoughtful actions could make a big difference. The woman shifted in her seat, attempting to adjust her posture as if to regain some sense of control. She tried to speak, but her words faltered, and he gave no indication that he was listening. He remained calm, letting her reveal herself through her actions rather than her words. Every movement, every glance, and every small gesture told him more than she realized. He could see the uncertainty and fear that had replaced her earlier confidence. The realization of her failure weighed heavily on her, and it was evident in her body language. He leaned back slightly, allowing himself a moment to reflect on the events of the evening. The note from the waitress had been the catalyst, giving him the awareness he needed to act with clarity and control. He had observed carefully, considered every possibility, and maintained his calm under pressure. The woman had underestimated him, and that mistake had become her undoing. He now had the advantage not through confrontation, but through understanding and patience. The subtle power of awareness had shifted the dynamics entirely. The waitress, moving past the table to collect a few remaining dishes, noticed the change in energy. The woman's tension was now evident in every small movement. The man's calm composure contrasted sharply with her nervousness, showing that he had taken control without a single dramatic outburst. Her instincts had been right from the beginning, and the note had been the perfect intervention. She felt a sense of pride mixed with relief, knowing that her action had contributed to preventing further complications and had helped bring the truth to light. The woman attempted one last effort to regain a sense of normalcy. She spoke softly, tried to smile, and even shifted her hand to appear casual. But he observed each action carefully and saw through every attempt. His calm, measured approach allowed him to maintain control while letting her actions reveal her true intentions. The knowledge he had gained gave him confidence, and he knew that he could handle the situation without escalating it or causing unnecessary conflict. He reached for his phone discreetly, sending a brief message to someone he trusted. Every movement was calculated, ensuring that he retained control while preparing for the next steps. The woman's awareness of his observation made her realize that her secrets were fully exposed, and she now understood that the evening had gone beyond her control. The subtle gestures, the hidden signals, and the small moments that had been unnoticed before had all come together to reveal the truth. He had the clarity he needed, and the advantage was firmly in his hands. The waitress, now finishing her rounds, felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. She had acted on her instincts, trusted her observations, and her timely intervention had made a real difference. She had seen enough to understand the seriousness of the situation and had acted without hesitation. Now, she watched the resolution unfold with a sense of calm pride. The evening had shown her the power of awareness and the importance of timely action. Her role may have been small, but it had been essential. The man observed the woman closely, noting the way her eyes avoided his, the tension in her shoulders, and the subtle movements of her hands. He knew that confrontation was not necessary. The truth was already clear. Her actions, her gestures, and her expressions had revealed everything he needed to know. He felt a mix of emotions: anger at the betrayal, disappointment at the loss of trust, and a quiet satisfaction in having uncovered the truth without causing a public scene. He allowed himself a moment of reflection, understanding the power of awareness and patience. The woman, realizing the extent of her exposure, remained silent. She no longer tried to manipulate the situation or regain control. Every attempt she had made had been seen and understood. The calm observation of the man, combined with the timely intervention of the waitress, had completely shifted the balance of power. She was left with only the awareness of her own failure, and the realization that the truth could not be hidden any longer. As the staff began to close the restaurant, the man finally stood up. He moved with quiet confidence, his actions deliberate and composed. The woman followed, her movements uncertain, her earlier confidence gone. He had handled the situation with precision, using observation and careful timing rather than confrontation. The note had been a turning point, and the events of the evening had proven that even small interventions could have significant consequences. The balance of power had shifted completely, and he now controlled the outcome. The waitress, finishing her final tasks, took a deep breath and allowed herself a moment of reflection. She had acted out of instinct, and her intervention had helped reveal the truth. The quiet satisfaction she felt was not about recognition, but about knowing that she had done the right thing at the right time. Her awareness, attention to detail, and courage had played a crucial role in the evening's events. She understood that even small actions could have a profound impact when executed with care and intention. The man walked through the restaurant toward the exit, the woman following behind. The tension that had defined the evening was still present, but it had transformed into a quiet understanding of the events that had unfolded. He had maintained control through patience, observation, and careful action, and the woman now understood that her deception had been exposed. The lessons of the evening were clear. Awareness, intuition, and timely intervention could change outcomes in ways that might not be immediately visible to others. Outside, the cool night air contrasted with the warmth of the restaurant. The man took a moment to reflect on the events, understanding how quickly trust could be tested and how important it was to remain aware. The woman remained silent, her actions now revealing nothing but acknowledgement of the truth. The evening had ended, but the impact of the events would remain with them both. The quiet courage of the waitress, the patient observation of the man, and the revelation of hidden intentions had all come together to create a story of awareness, action, and consequence. The waitress, leaving the restaurant behind her, felt a sense of fulfillment. She had trusted her instincts, acted when it mattered, and witnessed the outcome with clarity. The evening had proven that even those who seemed on the sidelines could influence events profoundly. She walked away quietly, knowing that her actions had prevented further complications and had allowed the truth to surface. The story of the evening would remain mostly unseen by others, but for her, it was a reminder of the power of awareness, observation, and timely action. The man, now fully aware of the betrayal, had taken control of the situation without drama, confrontation, or escalation. He had used patience, observation, and careful decision-making to handle the events with precision. The woman's attempts at manipulation had failed, and the subtle signals and gestures that had gone unnoticed earlier were now clear. The balance of power had shifted entirely, and he had the advantage in managing the outcome. The quiet resolution was a testament to the importance of awareness, instinct, and thoughtful action. As the night ended, all involved had learned something valuable. The power of observation and timely intervention could change the course of events. Trust, once broken, could be recognized and addressed through careful attention and calm action. The evening had demonstrated how small actions could have significant consequences and how awareness and courage could prevent further complications. In the end, the truth had been revealed, and those who had acted with care and insight had shaped the outcome in meaningful ways.